My daughter kicked me out the day after my wife's funeral, mockingly saying that I would sleep in the doghouse. I smiled, hiding a secret. $20 million and a villa that my wife had hidden. While she plans to steal my house, I plan her destruction. We continue. Please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The house felt wrong, not empty. It was full of people offering sympathies I barely heard. Wrong because my daughter hadn't cried once. Wrong because her husband kept measuring my walls with his eyes. I stood by the fireplace, accepting handshakes and murmured condolences with mechanical nods. 40 years as a prosecutor had taught me to read people, to catch the small tells that revealed their true intentions. Right now, those instincts screamed at me while I pretended not to notice. Hortense moved through the living room like she was inspecting property, not mourning, not remembering her mother, just evaluating. She hadn't touched the framed photograph on the mantel. My wife, smiling in our backyard 3 summers ago, hadn't even looked at it. "Your wife was a wonderful woman, Lester." Mrs. Patterson from next door squeezed my hand. I thanked her, watched her gather her coat, and leave. Michael, my son-in-law, walked past carrying nothing, helping no one. His fingers trailed along the leather sofa, paused on the antique dining table my wife had inherited from her grandmother. He opened a cabinet door, peered inside, closed it. Opened another. I turned toward the kitchen, carrying empty plates that didn't need carrying. Their voices reached me before I saw them. Hallway, just beyond the kitchen doorway. Finally, Michael's whisper carried that edge of satisfaction I'd heard from criminals who thought they'd gotten away with something. "The house is ours now. We can renovate the whole place." I kept my hand steady on the counter. He never had anything else anyway. Hortense's voice, my daughter's voice. "Just these walls. Mom paid for everything." I rinsed a plate that was already clean. The water ran cold over my fingers. They moved away back toward the remaining guests. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at nothing, processing what I'd heard like evidence in a case. Their words, their tone, the complete absence of grief. The house emptied slowly. Neighbors departed. Former colleagues from the prosecutor's office offered quiet support and left. By 7, only Hortense and Michael remained. She found me by the window overlooking the backyard. The doghouse I'd built 15 years ago stood in the corner, weathered but solid, back when Hortense still called me Daddy and helped me paint it blue. "Dad," she crossed her arms, no tears, no warmth. "We need to talk tomorrow morning, about the future, about arrangements." I turned from the window. "Arrangements? Living arrangements, this house, everything?" Michael stepped beside her, his posture aggressive. "She means we need to figure out what happens next, with the property, with everything here." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, searched for some sign of the little girl who used to fall asleep on my shoulder, found nothing but cold calculation. "I see." I kept my voice quiet, measured. "Tomorrow then." They left 10 minutes later. I listened to Michael's car pull away, then walked through the house checking locks I'd checked 1,000 times. Everything looked different now. The furniture my wife had chosen, the walls we'd painted together, the life we'd built. In the hallway, I stopped where they'd been standing, where my daughter had said I never had anything. 20 years as a prosecutor taught me to recognize predators. I just never thought I'd see that look in my own daughter's eyes. My bedroom felt too large, too empty. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my funeral suit, and stared at the nightstand. The envelope waited inside, exactly where I'd kept it for 3 years. My wife's voice echoed in my memory. We'd been sitting in this same spot, late afternoon light coming through the window. She'd held the envelope like it contained something precious and dangerous. "Lester, if something happens to me, don't open this until after the funeral." She'd grip my hand. "Until you see how things really are, then you'll understand why I kept this secret." What secret? Protection. She'd pressed the envelope into my hands. "For you." I'd promised. Hadn't understood, but I'd promised. Now I pulled open the nightstand drawer. The envelope lay there, my name written in her careful script. "For Lester, when the time comes." I turned it over in my hands, thick, heavy, something substantial inside. My daughter's voice played back in my head. "Just these walls." Michael's whisper. "The house is ours now." I should open it, should see what my wife wanted me to know. Instead, I placed it back in the safe behind the closet panel. Tomorrow I'd face whatever Hortense planned, whatever claims she thought she could make. Let her show her cards first. Let her believe she'd already won. Then I'd decide what to do. I lay back on the bed, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. My mind replayed the day, the funeral, the reception, the overheard conversation, the look in my daughter's eyes when she talked about arrangements. Outside, a car passed on the street. The house settled around me, familiar creaks and whispers. The same sounds I'd heard for decades, sounds that used to mean home. Now they meant something else. I held the envelope in the darkness, my wife's handwriting barely visible. 3 years she'd kept this secret. 3 years she'd known something I didn't. Tomorrow I'd face my daughter's plans. Tonight, I'd let her believe she'd already won. I woke to the sound of drawers opening in rooms that weren't mine anymore. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered my own bedroom, the day after my wife's funeral, and my daughter was taking it from me, 7 in the morning. Gray light filtered through the curtains. I'd slept maybe 2 hours, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and now someone was moving through my house. I sat up, listening. Footsteps in the hallway, something heavy being dragged across the living room floor. Voices, Hortense and Michael, speaking in normal tones, not whispering anymore. I stood, crossed to the door, opened it. 3 cardboard boxes sat in the hallway. My retirement plaques, my reading glasses, a framed photograph of my wife and me on our anniversary, all packed, ready to go. Hortense appeared at the top of the stairs, carrying another box. She stopped when she saw me, didn't flinch, didn't apologize, just set the box down. "Morning, Dad. I'm helping you pack." The words came out matter of fact, like she was doing me a favor. "Pack for what?" Michael emerged from the guest room with an armful of my books. "We figured we'd make this easier for everyone. Get your things together so we can start the transition." Transition to what? I kept my voice level. Didn't raise it. Prosecutors don't shout. Hortense stepped closer. "Dad, this house belonged to Mom. Her name was on everything. The deed, the mortgage, all of it. You know that." I did know that. My wife had inherited money from her father decades ago. Used it to buy this place outright. I'd been building my career, not making much. She'd insisted her name go on the paperwork, said it made sense legally. I'd never questioned it. "We've already contacted a real estate agent," Michael added. "The market's good right now. We should get excellent value." "You're selling my house?" "Mom's house," Hortense corrected me quietly. "And yes, we need the money, medical bills from her treatment, funeral costs, everything. You understand?" I understood plenty, just not what she thought I understood. "Where exactly am I supposed to go?" Michael shrugged. "There's that doghouse out back, pretty sturdy." He smiled when he said it. Actually smiled. Hortense shot him a look, but didn't contradict him. Instead, she gestured at the boxes. "We found a place that might work. Extended stay motel near the airport, month to month. We can help with first month's rent." "How generous." "Don't be difficult." She picked up one of the boxes. "Mom supported you for years. You never really contributed. She told me about your salary, about how she paid for everything while you played prosecutor. This is just reality catching up." I walked past her, down the stairs, found more boxes in the living room, my things sorted and packed by my daughter's hands, my life reduced to containers. "I need to get my car," I said. "We'll help you load." Michael was already moving, lifting boxes, carrying them toward the door. I went to my car, parked in the driveway where I'd left it yesterday. Opened the trunk. Came back for the first box. Hortense met me at the door. For a second, I thought she might say something, might show some crack in that cold facade, might remember that I was her father. "Hortense." I stopped, looked at her. "I'm your father. Your mother just died yesterday." "Don't." She held up one hand. "You never provided anything for this family. Nothing. Mom carried everything, the house, the bills, our life. You were just there. This was always hers, never yours." I carried the box to my car, loaded it, went back for another. 3 trips. That's what my life in this house came down to. 3 boxes and 30 minutes. Michael stood at the door as I loaded the last one. "That's it? No fight?" I stopped at the doorway where they both stood. Looked at my daughter one more time. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You made your choice. I walked to my car, got in, and drove away from McCormick Ranch. Didn't look back. If I'd looked back, I might have lost the control I'd spent 40 years developing. Desert Palms Motel sat on the outskirts of Scottsdale, the kind of place where people stayed when they had nowhere else to go. Monthly rates advertised on a faded sign. Parking lot half empty even in morning. The clerk barely glanced at me when I checked in. I paid cash for a week, took the key to room 114, and carried my 3 boxes inside. The room smelled like old carpet and industrial cleaner. Single bed, small table, television bolted to the wall, window overlooking the parking lot. I set the boxes on the bed and sat beside them, stared at them for a long moment. Then I went to my car and retrieved the envelope from where I'd hidden it in my jacket pocket. Had grabbed it from the safe while Hortense was downstairs, tucked it away before they saw. Back in the motel room, I opened it. A deed fell out first. Paradise Valley Villa. My wife's name. Square footage numbers that made my breath catch. Property value estimated at $15 million. Bank statements next. Investment accounts. Bonds, securities. Numbers that didn't make sense until I added them correctly. $20 million, maybe more. A letter, handwritten on my wife's stationery. Lester, if you're reading this, our daughter has shown you who she's become. I saw it years ago. This inheritance from my father, the villa, the investments, I kept it secret for you, not her. She doesn't understand the value of anything she didn't take herself. Use this wisely. You'll know what to do. Your wife, who always knew you were enough. I read it 3 times, sat there in that motel room holding paper worth millions, thinking about my daughter packing my things, about Michael's joke about the doghouse, about Hortense saying I'd never contributed anything. A business card slipped from the envelope. James Morrison, attorney at law. A number in Phoenix. The letter shook slightly in my hands, not from fear, but something else, something colder. My wife had known. She'd seen what our daughter would become and protected me from it. $20 million, a villa in Paradise Valley. And my daughter thought I was sleeping in a doghouse. I reached for my phone and James Morrison's business card. Time to make a call. I picked up Morrison's business card and stared at it. Standard design, professional font, a downtown Scottsdale address, the kind of card that gave no hint of the secrets its owner kept. The documents lay spread across the motel bed, like evidence at trial. I'd spent the last hour organizing them chronologically, the way I used to organize case files. Villa deed dated March 2022. Investment statements running quarterly from then until last month. Property deed for the McCormick Ranch house. That one was older, yellowed at the edges, dated 1983. 2 years before we married. I picked up my wife's letter again. 2 pages, handwritten on her personal stationery. The paper felt substantial in my hands. Quality stock. She'd taken time with this. Hadn't rushed it. Lester, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and our daughter has shown you who she really is. I kept reading, though I'd already been through it twice. I saw it happening over the last decade. The way she looked at our home like it was a prize she was owed. The way she stopped asking about you and started asking about assets. This inheritance from my father, I kept it from her deliberately. Not to punish her, but to protect you. My wife had always been observant, quieter than me, less confrontational, but she missed nothing. While I'd been focused on cases, on building arguments and winning trials, she'd been watching our daughter change. I walked to the window. The motel parking lot stretched below, half empty in midday sun. My car sat alone near the office, those 3 boxes of my life still in the trunk. The letter continued on page 2. She'll come for the house first. She doesn't know it was mine before we married, my mother's gift. She doesn't know about Paradise Valley or the investments. She thinks you have nothing. Let her think it, then show her what the law really says. You were always the better prosecutor, Lester. Prosecute this case. I set the letter down and picked up the house deed. Read it carefully this time, the way I should have read it years ago. Property transferred to Caroline Margaret Davis from her mother's estate, 1983. Sole ownership. My name appeared nowhere on the document. Community property state or not, this house had been my wife's separate property from the beginning. She'd told me it made sense for tax purposes, that her mother wanted it that way. I'd trusted her, never questioned it. which meant Hortense had evicted me from a house that wasn't hers, had never been hers. A house that legally belonged to me, now as surviving spouse. The irony tasted bitter. I checked my watch. 1 in the afternoon. I sat on the edge of the bed, Morrison's card in one hand, my phone in the other. Making this call would start something I couldn't stop, would transform me from evicted father into active opponent. Once I engaged an attorney, once I set the legal machinery in motion, there'd be no pretending anymore, no more benefit of the doubt for my daughter. I dialed. Morrison Law Offices. Professional voice, administrative assistant. James Morrison, please. This is Lester Davis. My wife recently passed and she left your card in an envelope for me. Brief hold, then a different voice, male, measured and calm. Mr. Davis, I'm so sorry for your loss. Morrison's tone carried genuine sympathy. Your wife was a remarkable woman. She prepared very carefully for this moment. I need to be direct. I kept my voice steady, prosecutor to attorney. My daughter evicted me from my home yesterday. She believes the house is hers through inheritance. Silence on the line. Then, carefully, I see. Mr. Davis, did your wife explain the property ownership to you? Not until now. The envelope contained several surprises. I imagine it did. Morrison paused. We should meet immediately. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock at my office. Bring all the documents your wife left you. And Mr. Davis. Don't contact your daughter or inform her about any of this. Not yet. Understood. I glanced at the papers spread across the bed. I learned patience in courtrooms, counselor. I can wait a little longer. We confirmed the address and ended the call. I set the phone down and returned to the documents. The villa deed caught my attention again. $8 million. Paradise Valley, one of the wealthiest zip codes in Arizona. Property my wife had owned for 3 years without telling me. Not because she didn't trust me, because she did. She'd known what our daughter would do, had seen it coming while I was still making excuses, still hoping Hortense would outgrow whatever phase she was in. My wife had watched our daughter's transformation from hopeful girl to calculating woman, and she'd made plans. Plans that didn't include letting Hortense destroy me. I gathered the documents carefully, returned them to the envelope. Tomorrow at 10, I'd learn the details. The legal process, the timeline, the strategy. Tonight I'd stay in this motel room with my 3 boxes and my dead wife's foresight, and I'd think about prosecuting a case. The afternoon light shifted across the parking lot. Somewhere across town, Hortense and Michael were probably settling into my house, their house, in their minds. Maybe planning renovations, maybe already measuring for new furniture. Let them plan. Let them celebrate. Let them believe they'd won. My wife's words echoed, prosecute this case. 20 years as prosecutor. Hundreds of cases, thousands of hours building arguments, finding weaknesses, presenting evidence. I knew how to build a case, knew how to wait for the right moment. The difference was, I'd never prosecuted family before. I set the envelope on the nightstand beside Morrison's card. Tomorrow would begin the process. Forms would be filed. Wheels would turn, legal machinery grinding toward an inevitable conclusion. My daughter thought she'd taken everything. She didn't know that everything she thought she'd taken had never been hers, had never even been mine, technically, had been my wife's gift to me through her absence. I lay back on the motel bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, wondered what Hortense would say when she realized, when she understood that her mother hadn't just died, had left final instructions, final judgment. Tomorrow at 10. I closed my eyes. Didn't sleep. Just waited. I woke before the alarm. The motel room was dark, but I'd already been awake for an hour, watching the ceiling, reviewing everything I knew. At 10, I'd meet the attorney. By noon, I'd know if the law was truly on my side, or if my wife's careful planning had somehow missed a detail that would let my daughter keep what she'd taken. I showered, dressed in the one suit I'd packed. Navy blue, professional, the same suit I used to wear to closing arguments. It still fit, though the collar felt looser than I remembered. Morrison's office occupied the 3rd floor of a steel and glass building in the downtown Scottsdale. The lobby directory listed him as specializing in estate planning and probate. Good. Meant he knew the territory. The elevator ride felt longer than 3 floors. His receptionist smiled when I gave my name. "Mr. Davis, Mr. Morrison is expecting you. Go right in." The office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Scottsdale Road. Morrison stood from behind a mahogany desk, extended his hand. Mid-50s, silver hair, sharp eyes behind frameless glasses. The kind of eyes that had read thousands of documents and caught every discrepancy. "Mr. Davis, thank you for coming." His handshake was firm. "Please sit." I settled into the leather chair across from his desk, set the envelope on my lap. "Before we begin," Morrison said, "I want you to understand that your wife and I spent considerable time on her estate plan. She was very specific about her wishes and very concerned about protecting you. She succeeded." I opened the envelope, spread the documents on his desk. "I assume you recognize these." Morrison examined each paper carefully, nodded. "I drafted the will myself, witnessed the signing. Your wife was meticulous. Tell me about the house." He pulled a file from his drawer. "The McCormick Ranch property was your wife's separate property, acquired before your marriage through her mother's estate. In Arizona, separate property remains separate unless explicitly converted to community property. Your wife never made that conversion, which means, as her surviving spouse and sole beneficiary under her will, the house is yours, legally, unquestionably." The words settled between us, simple, clear, final. "My daughter evicted me 2 days ago." Morrison's expression didn't change, but his pen stopped mid-note. "She had no legal authority to do so. The house wasn't hers to claim. She didn't know that. Most people don't understand separate property law." Morrison leaned forward. "Here's what happens now. We file probate paperwork with Maricopa County Superior Court. Standard process, 3 to 4 months typically. During that time, we also file an eviction notice against your daughter and her husband. They're unlawful occupants of your property. I absorb this. How long before they have to leave? Arizona law requires 60 days notice for residential eviction. We file, they receive notice, the clock starts. If they don't vacate voluntarily, we go to court. Given the circumstances, you'll prevail easily." "What about the villa, the investments?" Morrison opened another folder. "The Paradise Valley property and associated accounts were also your wife's separate property, inherited from her father in 2022. She established clear beneficiary designations, naming you as sole inheritor. No complications there either. $8 million villa. Current appraisal." He slid the document across. $20 million in investment accounts, conservatively managed. Your wife was quite wealthy, Mr. Davis, and she made absolutely certain that wealth would come to you, not your daughter. I sat back. The leather chair creaked slightly. Through the window, Scottsdale stretched out under clear Arizona sky. Somewhere in that sprawl, Hortense was living in a house that wasn't hers, dreaming of money that would never come. "Why did she do this?" I asked. "Keep it secret?" Morrison pulled out another document, handwritten notes in my wife's script, margin comments on a draft of her will. "She left instructions for me to share these if you asked." He turned the pages toward me. "Your wife observed your daughter's behavior over several years, documented incidents. She believed, and I quote, 'Hortense has learned to take rather than earn. If she knows about this inheritance while I'm alive, she'll demand it immediately. She'll waste it. She'll hurt her father with it.'" The words stung, but didn't surprise me. Not anymore. Morrison continued. "Your wife wanted you protected and wanted her assets preserved. She structured everything to ensure that outcome. She was quite brilliant about it, actually. What do I need to do? Sign representation papers. Give me authority to file probate and eviction proceedings. Then wait while the process unfolds." Morrison pulled out prepared documents. "I'll file everything this week. The court paperwork will be served to your daughter within 7 days. She'll realize then what she's actually dealing with." I reviewed the papers, standard representation agreement, retainer terms, court filing authorizations. Everything clean and proper. "What will she do?" I asked. "When she finds out?" Morrison capped his pen. "In my experience, Mr. Davis, people who take things they don't deserve rarely accept losing them gracefully. Expect a fight." I signed the documents, one after another, each signature a step forward, away from victim and towards something else, something harder. Morrison collected the papers, filed them in a folder labeled Estate of Caroline Margaret Davis. "One more thing," I said. "The villa, when can I see it?" "Technically, after probate closes. Practically whenever you want. Your wife left you the keys and security codes in her safe deposit box. I have them here. He handed me a small envelope. Inside, 2 keys and a card with handwritten numbers. The address is on the deed. It's quite remarkable. Morrison stood, walked me toward the door. Your wife left detailed instructions about the property. She wanted you to have somewhere peaceful, her word. We shook hands at the threshold. We'll file Monday morning, he said. The court paperwork will be served to your daughter within a week. She'll realize then what she's actually dealing with. I pressed the elevator button. How do you think she'll react? Morrison paused. In my experience, Mr. Davis, people who take things they don't deserve rarely accept losing them gracefully. Expect a fight. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. Good, I said. I spent 20 years in courtrooms. I know how to fight. Morrison's email had arrived Sunday night. Everything ready. Meet me at the office 9 a.m. Monday. We file tomorrow. I'd spent the week waiting, reading, walking the motel parking lot at night when sleep wouldn't come, thinking about my daughter living in my house, probably redecorating, probably celebrating her victory. Monday morning, I dressed in the suit I'd packed during the eviction, navy blue, the same one I'd worn for closing arguments. It still fit, though I'd lost weight these past weeks. I checked my reflection in the motel mirror, adjusted my tie, and drove downtown. Morrison met me in his office lobby. He carried a leather briefcase, documents already organized inside. We took his car to the courthouse. Maricopa County Superior Court occupied a modern building in downtown Phoenix. We parked in the structure across the street, walked through security, took the elevator to the 4th floor. Probate court clerk's office. The hallway smelled like old paper and air conditioning. Morrison approached the counter. I stood beside him, watching. The clerk was a woman in her 40s, efficient movements, eyes that had processed thousands of documents. She took Morrison's paperwork without looking up. Probate petition with separate property claim. She began reviewing pages. I'll need the death certificate, marriage certificate, and property deeds for the file. All attached, Morrison said, exhibits A through F. She stamped each page. The sound was sharp, final, date, time, official seal of the court. She entered information into her computer, typed quickly, printed a receipt. Case number 2025 PR 00732, preliminary hearing, March 10th, 9 a.m., Judge Brennan's courtroom. You'll receive formal notice by mail. March 10th, I said quietly. Understood. 4 weeks, 4 more weeks in that motel room. But the machinery was moving now. Legal gears turning. The process I'd spent 20 years working within, now working for me instead of through me. Morrison and I returned to his car. He drove me back to the motel. I'll have the papers served Wednesday, he said. Process server will deliver them to your daughter at the house. Standard procedure. I thanked him and went back to room 114, sat on the bed, stared at the court receipt in my hands. Case number 2025 PR 04732. My life reduced to a filing number. My daughter's theft reduced to a property dispute. The law was cold that way. Didn't care about family, didn't care about betrayal, just cared about deeds and wills and proper procedure. Sometimes cold was exactly what you needed. Wednesday afternoon, I was reading a newspaper when my phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. I let it ring twice before answering. Heavy breathing. Then, is this Lester Davis? Speaking. This is Hortense Davis Clark. Her voice was different, tight, strained. And Michael Clark. We just received some legal documents. I set the newspaper aside, sat up straighter. Daddy. The word came out forced, artificial sweetness coating something desperate underneath. We received some paperwork, and I think there's been a misunderstanding. We got emotional after Mom's funeral. We want you to come home. We can forget all this legal confusion. I said nothing, let her words hang in the air between us. Daddy, are you there? There's no confusion. But Daddy, we're family. The house isn't yours, I interrupted. My voice stayed level, emotionless, prosecutor's tone. It never was. I'll see you in court. I ended the call, set the phone on the desk, went back to reading the newspaper. It rang again 30 seconds later, her name on the screen. I didn't answer. It went to voicemail. She called twice more that evening. I ignored both calls. Thursday morning, Morrison called. Your daughter's been trying to hire representation, he said. She contacted 4 firms yesterday. None would take her case. Why not? No money for retainers, and frankly, the case is unwinnable. The documents are ironclad. Any competent attorney can see that in 5 minutes. They're not going to waste time on a losing case with clients who can't pay. I absorbed this. So she'll be alone in court. Pro se representation, representing herself. It rarely goes well. I know, I said. I've seen it plenty of times. After hanging up, I walked to the motel office and bought another week. The clerk barely acknowledged me, just took my cash and handed over a receipt. Back in my room, I opened the manila folder Morrison had given me. Court documents, evidence exhibits, timeline of events, everything organized the way I used to organize prosecution cases. My daughter thought the funeral had ended our relationship, thought evicting me had been the final word. She didn't understand that the law was patient. The law took time, but the law always, eventually, spoke. And when it didn't whisper. My phone buzzed. Text message from Morrison. Hearing confirmed March 10th, 9 a.m. Judge Brennan assigned. She's fair, but no nonsense. Perfect for this case. I typed back, I'll be there. Then I set the phone down and looked around my motel room. The furniture that wasn't mine, the walls that weren't mine, the temporary space I'd occupied for 3 weeks while my daughter slept in my bed, ate in my kitchen, planned renovations for my house. March 10th couldn't come fast enough. But I'd learned patience. 20 years of building cases, waiting for trial dates, letting investigations develop. Patience was a prosecutor's greatest tool, and I was about to prosecute the most important case of my life. Outside, traffic hummed on the street, Phoenix stretched out under February sun. Somewhere in that sprawl, my daughter was probably panicking, probably arguing with Michael, probably realizing that the house she thought she owned was slipping away. Let her panic, let her argue, let her realize. The hearing was 4 weeks away, and I'd wait every single day if I had to, because the law was on my side, the documents were on my side, my dead wife's careful planning was on my side, and my daughter? She had nothing but assumptions and greed. The suit felt strange. I hadn't worn it since my last day in the prosecutor's office 5 years ago. Dark blue, pressed sharp, the uniform of courtrooms I'd spent 20 years in. I adjusted the tie in the motel mirror. 9 o'clock hearing. 4 weeks of waiting ended today. Time to let the law speak. Morrison met me in the courthouse lobby. We went through security together, rode the elevator to Judge Brennan's courtroom on the 3rd floor. The courtroom was smaller than the ones I'd worked in. Fewer benches, single row for spectators. But the layout was familiar. Judge's bench elevated, witness stand to the right, counsel tables facing forward. I had stood at tables like these hundreds of times. Never thought I'd be sitting at one as a party rather than a prosecutor. Hortense and Michael were already there, front row on the opposite side. She wore a dark dress, conservative, trying to look respectful. Michael wore a suit that didn't fit right, too tight across the shoulders. They sat close together, whispering. Neither looked at me when Morrison and I entered. We took our seats at the petitioner's table. Morrison arranged his files, positioned exhibits in order. I sat beside him, hands folded, watching. At precisely 9, the bailiff stood. All rise, the Honorable Sarah Brennan presiding. Everyone stood. Judge Brennan entered from chambers, late 50s, gray hair pulled back, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She took her seat. We all sat. Case 2025 PR Zhor 732, the clerk announced. In the matter of the estate of Caroline Margaret Davis. Judge Brennan opened the file before her, read silently for a moment, then looked up. Mr. Morrison, you're representing the petitioner. Morrison stood. Yes, Your Honor, Lester Davis, the surviving spouse. And the respondents are here pro se? Hortense stood awkwardly. Yes, Your Honor. I'm Hortense Davis Clark. This is my husband, Michael Clark. We're representing ourselves. Very well. Judge Brennan's tone was neutral, but firm. This is a preliminary hearing on a probate petition and separate property claim. Mr. Morrison, present your case. Morrison stood, pulled the first exhibit. Your Honor, the petitioner Lester Davis is the surviving spouse of Caroline Margaret Davis, who passed away February 15, 2025. We have the death certificate marked as Exhibit A. He handed it to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. The property in question, located at 4742 East Montecito Avenue in Scottsdale, was purchased by Mrs. Davis in 1983 prior to her marriage to Mr. Davis in 1985. The deed, marked Exhibit B, shows sole ownership in Caroline Davis's name. Another document passed forward. Under Arizona law, property acquired before marriage remains separate property unless explicitly converted to community property. No such conversion ever occurred. Mrs. Davis's will, executed in 2022 and marked Exhibit C, names Lester Davis as sole beneficiary of all separate property, including this residence. Judge Brennan examined each document carefully. And the respondent's claim? Morrison gestured toward Hortense. The respondents, who are Mrs. Davis's daughter and son-in-law, have no documented claim to the property. They appear to have assumed inheritance based on family relationship, despite the will's clear language. Hortense shot to her feet. "That's not true. My mother always said the house would be mine. She told me—" Judge Brennan cut her off. "Ms. Davis-Clark, you'll have your chance to respond. Sit down." Hortense sat. Her face was red. Michael put his hand on her arm. Morrison continued. "Additionally, Your Honor, the respondents physically removed Mr. Davis from the property on February 16th, the day after Mrs. Davis's funeral, without any legal authority to do so. They've been occupying the residence unlawfully for nearly 4 weeks. Your Honor." Hortense stood again, voice shaking. "My father never contributed to that house. My mother paid for everything. He didn't even have his name on. The deed speaks for itself, Ms. Davis-Clark." Judge Brennan's voice was ice. "Whether or not your father contributed financially is irrelevant. The property was your mother's separate property, and her will distributes it to him. Do you have any documentation showing a different ownership structure? Any evidence your mother intended you to inherit this specific property?" Silence. Hortense looked at Michael. He stared at the floor. "I didn't think so." Judge Brennan turned back to Morrison. "Anything else?" "The petitioner requests validation of the will, confirmation of his ownership rights, and an order requiring the respondents to vacate the property immediately." Judge Brennan reviewed the documents again. The courtroom was silent except for pages turning. Finally, she looked up. "The will is properly executed, witnessed, and notarized. The property deed clearly establishes separate ownership. The marriage certificate confirms spousal status. Mr. Morrison, I'm validating the will and confirming Mr. Davis's ownership of the property. As for the eviction, Your Honor, please." Hortense was crying now. "We have nowhere to go. We sold our condo to pay for my mother's medical bills. We need time. You should have considered that before removing your father from his home." Judge Brennan's tone didn't soften. "You have 60 days from today's date to vacate the property. If you fail to do so, Mr. Davis may pursue formal eviction proceedings. This matter is concluded." The gavel came down, sharp crack echoing through the room. "All rise." We stood. Judge Brennan left through the same door she'd entered. The bailiff nodded toward the exit. Morrison gathered his exhibits. I stood slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. 40 years of marriage, 2 weeks of homelessness, 1 morning of legal vindication. Hortense was still crying as Michael pulled her toward the exit. I remained seated while they left, watching their backs disappear through the double doors. Morrison gathered exhibits into his briefcase. "Congratulations, Mr. Davis. The house is yours." I stood slowly. 60 days. My daughter had 60 days to leave my house. I walked to the courtroom windows overlooking downtown Phoenix. Somewhere below, Hortense and Michael were probably arguing, panicking, planning their next desperate move. But the law had spoken, and 20 years as a prosecutor had taught me one thing. The law doesn't negotiate. 2 months. That's how long it took Hortense and Michael to turn desperation into strategy. The motel phone rang at 7 in the morning, mid-May. Morrison's voice came through tired but urgent. "They filed a counter-motion, claiming you're mentally incompetent due to grief. They want the court to appoint Hortense as conservator." I sat up in bed. "Based on what?" "Character witnesses. A neighbor claiming you exhibited erratic behavior before your wife died. They're painting you as unstable." "That's a lie." "I know, but Judge Brennan ordered a psychological evaluation before the eviction can proceed. Preliminary hearing is set for May 15th. We need to be prepared." I dressed carefully that morning. The suit felt familiar now. I'd worn it to every court appearance. Navy blue, professional. The armor of someone who'd spent 20 years in courtrooms and knew how they worked. Morrison met me outside the courthouse. We walked in together, through security, up to Judge Brennan's courtroom. Hortense and Michael were already there with their new attorney, a man named Richard Stone, cheap suit straining across his middle, briefcase that looked like he'd bought it yesterday. Stone was a fighter. Desperate clients hired fighters. All rise. Judge Brennan entered, took her seat. We all sat. Case 2025 PR 004732, continued hearing regarding eviction order. The clerk's voice echoed in the small courtroom. Counter motion filed by respondents. Stone stood. Your Honor, we're requesting postponement of the eviction order pending psychological evaluation of the petitioner. We have evidence suggesting Mr. Davis was not of sound mind when he initiated these proceedings. Morrison objected. Your Honor, this is a transparent delay tactic. I'll hear the evidence, Mr. Morrison. Judge Brennan's tone was neutral. Mr. Stone, present your witness. A woman I'd never seen before took the stand. Eleanor Shaw, early 60s, nervous hands, eyes that wouldn't quite meet mine. Mrs. Shaw, how do you know the petitioner? I'm his neighbor. I live 3 houses down from him on Montecito. That was already a lie. I'd lived on that street for 40 years. Never seen this woman, Stone continued. Did you observe anything unusual about Mr. Davis's behavior in the months before his wife's death? Yes. Her voice wavered. I saw him several times, late at night, walking in his yard in his nightclothes, talking to himself. It was concerning. Morrison was on his feet. Objection, foundation. Has this witness been qualified as having expertise in mental health assessment? Sustained. Mrs. Shaw, just tell us what you observed, not your interpretation. But the damage was done. The seed was planted. Morrison's cross-examination was surgical. Mrs. Shaw, you say you live 3 houses down? Yes. On Montecito Avenue? That's right. Morrison pulled out a document. This is a property map from Maricopa County records. Can you point to your house? Shaw's face went pale. She couldn't. That's because you don't live on Montecito Avenue, do you? Morrison produced another paper. According to your driver's license, which you provided in your witness affidavit, you live on Maple Street, 3.2 miles away. Stone objected. Judge Brennan overruled. Furthermore, Morrison continued, your LinkedIn profile shows you worked with Hortense Davis Clark from 2019 to 2021. You're not a neighbor. You're a former coworker lying under oath. The courtroom went silent. Judge Brennan's expression hardened, but she was cautious, careful. Mr. Davis, I'm ordering a psychological evaluation. Not because I believe these allegations, but because they've been raised and I want them definitively addressed. We'll reconvene May 25th at 10 a.m. Morrison started to object, but I touched his arm. Let it go. Let them waste their time. I knew what the evaluation would show. That afternoon I sat in Dr. Sarah Mitchell's office completing cognitive assessments on a tablet. Pattern recognition, memory recall, problem solving. She asked careful questions about my emotional state. How are you coping with your wife's death? Sad? I kept my voice even. Angry at certain people, but functional. I understand what's happening and why. Have you experienced confusion, memory problems, difficulty making decisions? No. If anything, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. How so? Sometimes crisis forces clarity. You see people for who they really are. She made notes. We continued for 2 hours. The next day, another session. More tests, more questions. All of it designed to determine if I was competent. I'd spent 20 years evaluating witnesses, reading people, understanding what they needed to hear. This was no different. On May 20th, Morrison called. Dr. Mitchell's report came back. You're fully competent, excellent cognitive function, appropriate emotional responses, no evidence of diminished capacity. Good. The hearing is in 5 days. We'll present this and move for immediate enforcement of the eviction order. That evening I returned to the motel and found Michael waiting in the parking lot, leaning against my car, arms crossed, the posture of someone trying to intimidate. I parked 2 spaces away, got out slowly. My phone was already in my hand, recording app open, microphone pointing forward. You need to drop this lawsuit, old man. I kept walking toward my room. Or, what, Michael? He pushed off my car, followed me. Or, I make your life very difficult. I know people. People who don't ask questions. I stopped, turned to face him. Are you threatening me? I'm giving you advice. His voice dropped lower. Take it. He walked away, got in his car, left. I stood in the parking lot holding my phone, watching his taillights disappear. Then I spoke into the recording. May 20th, 7:15 p.m. Michael Clark just threatened me in the Desert Palms Motel parking lot. I forwarded the audio to Morrison, then to Scottsdale Police. Filed a report. 5 more days. 5 days until the hearing where this would end. I went inside, locked the door, and sat on the bed. Thought about my daughter hiring a woman to lie under oath. Thought about Michael threatening me in a parking lot. Thought about how far they'd gone to keep something that was never theirs. The evaluation proved I was competent. The recording proved they were desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. I just had to wait for the final one. May 25th arrived clear and hot. I dressed in my suit, drove to the courthouse, met Morrison in the lobby at 9. They're going to lose, he said. Badly. I know. We took the elevator to Judge Brennan's courtroom. Hortense and Michael were already seated with Stone. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Michael's jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists on the table. All rise. Judge Brennan entered. We stood, sat, waited. Case 2025 PR 004-32, final hearing on eviction enforcement. Her voice was crisp, efficient. Mr. Morrison, present your evidence. Morrison stood, pulled out documents. Your Honor, Dr. Sarah Mitchell's psychological evaluation completed May 18th. He handed it to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. Judge Brennan read silently. 2 minutes, 3. Then she looked up. The report is unequivocal. Mr. Davis demonstrates full mental capacity, excellent cognitive function, appropriate emotional responses. The court finds no basis for the incompetency claim. Stone tried to object. Judge Brennan cut him off. Furthermore, the witness testimony from Mrs. Eleanor Shaw has been revealed as perjury. She'll be referred to the district attorney's office for prosecution. Hortense grabbed Stone's arm, whispered something urgent. He shook his head. Additionally, Judge Brennan continued, the court has received a police report filed May 20th regarding threats made by respondent Michael Clark against the petitioner, including an audio recording of those threats. She looked directly at Michael. Mr. Clark, stand up. He stood slowly, face flushed. Your behavior constitutes witness intimidation. I'm adding contempt of court charges and referring this matter to the district attorney as well. Your Honor, Stone began, I'm not finished. Judge Brennan's tone could have cut glass. This case involves clear property ownership, unlawful eviction, attempted fraud, and witness intimidation. The evidence overwhelmingly favors the petitioner. She paused, looked at her notes, then back up. The defendants are ordered to vacate the property at 4742 East Montecito Avenue by May 28th at 5 p.m. That's 72 hours from now. Defendants will pay plaintiff $8,500 in restitution for property damage and items sold without authorization. I'm referring all criminal matters, perjury, fraud, and intimidation, to the Maricopa County District Attorney's Office. The gavel came down. Michael exploded from his chair. This is complete. Sit down, Mr. Clark. He didn't sit, took a step toward the bench instead. You can't just... 2 bailiffs moved fast, hands on Michael's arms, pulling him back. He struggled, shouted something I couldn't make out. They dragged him toward the door. Hortense was crying, reaching for him. Judge Brennan's voice cut through the chaos. Mr. Clark, you're in contempt. 30 days county jail. Bailiffs, remove him. The doors closed behind them. The courtroom went silent. Court is adjourned. Another strike of the gavel. Morrison gathered our documents. I sat still, processing. Victory felt less satisfying than I'd imagined. Not because I'd won, because of what winning meant. In the hallway, Hortense found me. Her face was blotchy from crying, makeup smeared. Dad, please. Her voice broke. We can't do this. We have no money, nowhere to live. I looked at her, really looked at her. Tried to find my daughter somewhere in this desperate woman. You should have thought of that before throwing me out. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please give us a chance. A chance? The words came out colder than I intended. Like the chance you gave me 24 hours after my wife died? When you put my life in boxes on the lawn? We're family. No. I stepped back. We were family. You ended that. I walked away. Didn't look back. Morrison fell into step beside me. The restitution check will be processed within 10 days, he said. The eviction is enforceable immediately. We left the courthouse together, stood in the parking structure for a moment, neither of us speaking. Congratulations, Mr. Davis. Thank you. I drove back to the motel, sat on the bed, held the court order that proved the house was mine. The villa was mine. Everything was mine. Victory felt hollow. Not because I regretted fighting back. I didn't. But because winning meant accepting that my daughter had chosen greed over family. And there was no coming back from that. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You'll regret this. I knew it was Michael. Forwarded it to Morrison, then to Scottsdale Police. Made another report. 72 hours. In 72 hours I could go home. But home wasn't the same place anymore. Couldn't be. Not after everything that had happened. Not after what my daughter had become. I lay back on the motel bed, court order still in my hands, and stared at the ceiling. Thought about 40 years of marriage, 3 months of homelessness, 1 morning of legal vindication, and wondered if justice was supposed to feel this empty. The deadline was 5 p.m. on May 28th. I arrived at my house, at 5:15, giving them no excuse to claim I was forcing early eviction. Morrison came with me, along with a sheriff's deputy to ensure peaceful transition. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house was empty. Not empty of furniture, that was mine, and it remained. Empty of them. Their clothes gone, their personal items removed. The photographs Hortense had hung on the walls, pictures of her family, her accomplishments, her life, all taken down. Only nail holes remained. In the kitchen, a single note on the counter. 2 words in Hortense's handwriting. We're gone. The deputy walked through the rooms with me, checked for damage, found none. They'd followed the court order to the letter, left my property intact, removed only what was theirs. Looks like they cleared out clean, the deputy said. You need me to stay while you look around? No, thank you. I'll be fine. He left. Morrison stayed a few minutes longer, made sure I was settled. Then he left too, and I stood in my living room, in my house, legally mine, rightfully mine, and felt absolutely nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just emptiness. I walked through the rooms, master bedroom, the bed we'd bought 40 years ago, still there. Guest room, untouched. Office, my desk, my books, my files. Kitchen, cabinet still half full of dishes we'd collected over decades. The house was mine, but it wasn't home anymore. Couldn't be. Too much had happened. Too much had been poisoned. I stood by the fireplace where my wife's photograph had been, where it should be. Found only dust on the mantel. Made my decision right there. I'd sell this place, take the money, move to Paradise Valley permanently. Start over in the villa I'd never even seen but legally owned. Let someone else make memories here. Mine were ruined. Back at the motel that night, I called a realtor. By June 2nd, the house was listed. $1.19 million. The market was strong. Multiple offers came within a week. Accepted offer, $1.21 million, all cash, quick close. June 11th, I sat at a title company conference table signing papers. Stack of documents transferring 40 years of my life to strangers. Final signature. Title officer handed me a cashier's check. $1,147,328 after fees. I folded it, placed it in my jacket pocket, shook hands, and walked out. During those 2 weeks, Morrison kept me informed about Michael and Hortense. Michael's debt deadline passed June 1st, Morrison told me over the phone. The investors filed lawsuit June 2nd. By June 5th, he'd declared bankruptcy. Chapter 7. Complete liquidation. Everything, and his real estate license got suspended due to the fraud allegations. His career is finished. What about the restitution he owes me? You'll get pennies on the dollar, if anything. Bankruptcy discharges most of it. I don't need the money, I just needed justice. Morrison provided other updates. Hortense and Michael were renting a 1-bedroom apartment in a low-income area of Mesa. $1,100 a month. Hortense working as a cashier at a grocery store. Michael, unable to work in real estate, had taken a warehouse job. Their combined income barely covered rent and Michael's remaining debt obligations. The life they'd tried to steal had led to their complete financial ruin. I should have felt satisfied, should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt tired. June 20th, an email arrived from Hortense. Subject line, "I'm sorry." I opened it in my motel room, read it sitting at the small desk by the window. "Dad, I don't expect forgiveness. I was consumed by greed and resentment. Mom saw who I really was. I'm sorry I proved her right. Michael and I lost everything. We're living in a tiny apartment. I work retail. It's what we deserve. I just want you to know I understand now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I read it 3 times, felt unexpected pity mixed with bitterness. Sorry didn't rebuild trust. Sorry didn't undo throwing me out the day after my wife died. But maybe sorry was a start. Maybe, someday. I closed the laptop without responding, opened it again an hour later, reread the email, still didn't respond, marked it as read, left it in my inbox, unanswered. June 25th, I drove to Paradise Valley, to the villa I'd inherited but never visited, the address on the deed, $8 million of property my wife had left me. The gate opened with the code from the envelope, long driveway through desert landscaping, and then the house appeared. Not a house, an estate. Adobe and glass and mountain views. Sunset colors reflected off floor-to-ceiling windows, pool in the back, guest house beyond that. Everything pristine, professionally maintained, waiting. I unlocked the front door with the key my wife had left me and stepped inside. The air was cool, climate-controlled, furniture covered in protective sheets. But underneath, quality, taste, beauty, my wife's final gift. Not just money, but sanctuary. I walked through rooms I'd never known existed, found myself in the master bedroom, standing at windows overlooking the valley. Scottsdale spread out below like a constellation of lights as dusk fell. This could be home, could be, if I let it. I made my decision. The McCormick Ranch house money would go into investments. This villa would become my residence. Fresh start, new chapter. Life rebuilt from the ruins my daughter had created. July 4th, I moved in permanently. Left the motel behind, brought my 3 boxes of belongings into 8,000 square feet of space. They looked ridiculous, insignificant, but they were mine. And that was enough to start. The villa became home slowly. I bought new clothes to replace what I'd lost, hired someone to help me learn the systems, pool maintenance, security, the smart home technology my wife had installed, unpacked boxes I'd lived out of for 4 months, found something unexpected in the 3rd box, a photo album I hadn't known was there. Must have grabbed it during the eviction chaos. Inside, pictures of Hortense as a child, 5 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding my hand at the zoo. 10 years old, helping me paint the doghouse blue. 16, graduation cap askew, hugging both her parents. 25, wedding day, before Michael became what he became. I studied those photographs and tried to find the moment it changed. The moment my daughter became someone who could evict her father the day after her mother's funeral. Couldn't find it. The change had been gradual, invisible, like rust forming under paint. My wife had seen it, had known, had protected me from it. I closed the album, put it on a shelf, didn't look at it again for weeks. August 1st, a letter arrived, certified mail, from an attorney I didn't recognize. Inside, a formal request. Hortense wanted to meet, face to face, 30 minutes, neutral location, just to talk. No demands, no expectations, just closure. The attorney's note said she'd asked permission to reach out, said she understood if I declined, said she wasn't trying to manipulate or gain anything, just wanted one conversation. I held the letter for 2 days, thought about ignoring it, thought about refusing, thought about my wife and what she would have wanted. Finally called the attorney. One meeting, 30 minutes maximum, coffee shop halfway between Paradise Valley and Mesa, Thursday at 2. She'll be there. Thank you for considering. I hung up before he finished. Thursday arrived hot and clear. I drove to the coffee shop, arrived 10 minutes early, took a table near the back, ordered water, waited. Hortense walked in at exactly 2 o'clock. She looked different, thinner, tired, older than her 38 years, wearing a grocery store uniform, name tag still pinned to her chest. She saw me, hesitated, then walked over. I gestured to the chair across from me. "You have 30 minutes. Use them wisely." She sat, didn't order anything, just looked at me with eyes that held something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine remorse. "I don't deserve even that," she said quietly. "No, you don't, but I need closure, so speak." "Dad, I was a terrible daughter. I won't insult you with excuses." "Good, because I wouldn't believe them." She nodded, swallowed, continued. "When Mom was sick, I didn't visit as much as I should have. I was thinking about inheritance, about what I'd get, not about losing her, just about money." I said nothing. Let her talk. "Mom saw who I really was. She tried to reach me, tried to help me see what I was becoming. I didn't listen. I got angry instead, told her she was being unfair, controlling. She wasn't. I know, she was protecting you, from me." Hortense's voice broke. "She was right to leave everything to you. I would have wasted it, demanded more, never been satisfied." "Yes, you would have. I'm not asking forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know I finally understand what I did, what I became, what I destroyed." I studied my daughter, tried to see past the remorse to whether it was genuine or just another manipulation. "Your mother believed people could change," I said finally. "I want to believe that too." Something like hope flickered in her eyes. "But trust isn't rebuilt with words. It takes years, consistent actions, proof." The hope dimmed. "I don't know if I'll ever trust you again. I don't know if I want to try." "I understand. I hope you do, because this is all you get, this conversation, this moment." Then I moved forward with my life. Silence stretched between us. She looked down at her hands. I looked at my daughter and saw a stranger. "Can I?" she started, then stopped. Tried again. "Can I call you? Someday? Years from now, maybe, if I've actually changed?" "I don't know. Maybe." "How will you know if I've changed if we don't talk?" I stood, picked up my keys. "That's your problem to solve, not mine." "Dad, goodbye, Hortense." I walked out. Didn't look back. Got in my car and drove to Paradise Valley, to the villa, to the life I was building from the ruins. August 31st, my 68th birthday. I spent it alone on the terrace overlooking the valley. No cake, no celebration. Just me and a glass of my wife's favorite wine. Found a case of it in the villa's wine cellar. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink. The city below began lighting up as darkness fell. Beautiful, peaceful, solitary. I thought about the past year, my wife's death, my daughter's betrayal, the legal battle, the victory, the cost. Justice achieved, but family destroyed. Wealth discovered, but solitude embraced. Victory won, but relationships lost forever. Was it worth it? I raised my glass to the empty air beside me. "What do you think, Margaret? Did I do the right thing?" No answer came, just wind and distant traffic and the first stars appearing. But I felt peace, real peace, not happiness. That was too simple, too easy. But acceptance, understanding. The knowledge that I'd stood up for myself, fought for what was mine, refused to be a victim. My wife had left me the resources to fight. I'd chosen to use them for justice, not revenge. The difference mattered. The sun disappeared into the mountains, taking the last light of my 68th year with it. Tomorrow would bring 69, more sunrises, more sunsets. A life rebuilt not on what I'd lost, but on what remained, my dignity, my independence, my peace. As darkness settled over the valley, I went inside. Tomorrow was another day, and I would face it on my own terms. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.